Hi and welcome to Moore Market presents The Book Show, chaptered by HarperCollins. My name is Shilpa and this is your space to discuss all things books. Today we're going to be meeting with someone who has a decade's experience in advertising, marketing, journalism, basically multiple ways of telling us a story and keep us wanting for more. Of course, the success of his first book, Cold Truths, is a great testament to this. And today we're going to be discussing his second book, Yesterday's Ghost. Join me as I say hi to author Nikhil Pradhan. Let's start this chapter. Hi Nikhil, good to see you.
Great to see you too, Shilpa. It's a pleasure to be here with Chennai Live, and I'm looking forward to an absolutely wonderful discussion with you today.
In fact, you know what? I have to say right off the bat, right? When I even saw the book, when I read through it, I expected a lot more serious person to be, sharing the screen with me. And I see this huge smile, and I have to say, how how different is it to kind of maintain that pleasant, persona and personality, and to write this dark fiction kind of book?
I think that's one of the things that you'll notice about most horror or thriller writers. They are absolutely cheery, cheerful people in real life. It's just like, it's one way to kind of escape is to kind of go against what your personality usually is. So usually cheerful, cheery people end up writing the darkest stories, and probably the most serious, depressed people end up writing romantic comedies and things like that.
Right. I'm starting off with the absolute big question, which is that not many people can actually say that they've pioneered a literary genre, especially in a country like ours, with so much, so many books coming out, so much works of art coming out. You've pretty much fused together a couple of genres and made it your own. So was this like how did that come about? Was it like a conscious choice?
So I've been a fan of espionage thrillers for the longest time. I grew up reading a lot of the 70s, 80s, 90s classic. And then in the 90s, when I kind of started discovering more serious fiction, that's when I kind of fell into horror. And my love of reading kind of focused on these two genres. And then ultimately, when I got around to writing the story, I wondered why couldn't I just kind of mix these two genres I love? I'd never really ever read a spy horror. I mean, there's a lot of spy thrillers out there, spy action, spy adventures as genres, but I've never read a spy horror novel. And I thought, why not give it a shot? It sounded like an interesting thing to do, and I'm glad that it worked out.
Absolutely. In fact, for a lot of us who are tuned in, I'm sure they have a little bit of a context. For the rest of us, the uninitiated ones amongst us, Yesterday's Ghost is actually a coming together, like Nikhil rightly said, a lot of spy thriller elements, while a little bit of the supernatural elements as well. I do have to say, that's kind of been a pattern, right? I mean, not the what do you call it, not the fusing, but even with Cold Truth, there was a sense of there's a loom of danger all around right from the first page. So how does that come about in your story? Is it something that you start off with, or is it something that finds its place a little later?
So I love doing different things with my writing. I think with Cold Truth also there was I think I'm at my heart I'm kind of like a horror writer. And even in Cold Truth, the kind of horror that I touched upon was the cosmic horror genre. The other thing that I really like to kind of play around with is the way I write, the narrative form, the structure. I think with Yesterday's Ghost, what I've tried to do is really kind of pick apart the unreliable narrator kind of writing. But what happens is there are some key elements of facts that differ between each, one half of the chapter there where two people are talking, and the other half you kind of realize that, oh no, but something else happened. So you don't know which aspect to trust. Do I trust the person who is talking to the other person, or do I trust the author when he's narrating what actually happened? So that I wanted to kind of play around with that. The two big reasons why I write, what makes writing fun for me, is one, that I love playing around with genres. I love experimenting with different genres, mixing, matching, things like that. And second is obviously kind of experiment with narrative structure.
I do have to say, I want to talk about the unreliable narrator quite a bit. In fact, a large part
Yeah.
of my notes are, how you've kind of built the story around that. But
Yeah.
one of the main observations that I had is that, people are always comparing books to movies, especially,
Hmm.
nowadays,
Hmm.
there are a lot of youngsters who kind of left that gap. But I feel like a lot of people are
Yeah.
getting back to books nowadays. Of course, there is a lot of interest around thanks to authors like you, kind of genre bending books that actually
Hmm.
happen. But one primary thing that I noticed was that reading your book, right, it's not a reading experience. You are in the middle of the story, like you said with Cold Truth. I think I felt it a lot more because I am, in essence, uncovering or discovering the
Hmm.
details as the character does. And I feel like
Yeah.
that kind of breaks the whole, it's you're not reading it, you're living it. Is that,
Hmm.
again, once again, is that something that you trained yourself to do? Is that some, a lot of experiences or nitty gritties that you picked up from your favorite authors?
Yes, that's a great question. I think I when I write in a visual way. I kind of think about what I'm going to write, but then I also visualize it in my head. So it's easier for me to kind of put down words on paper once I kind of close my eyes and kind of think about, okay, this character is going to be here, this character is going to talk like this is the kind of location and things like that. So that kind of obviously adds a visual dimension to what I'm writing. The second thing is one of the biggest forms of storytelling that I'm a huge fan of is video game storytelling. I think that's a new form of storytelling, which is an experiential kind of storytelling, where you're not just kind of witnessing a story, but you're actually experiencing it. Your actions or what you're doing is kind of having an impact on how the story unfolds. So that's definitely a huge impact on the way I write.
When it comes to visual medium, right? Like you said, the old school Hollywood is kind of making a comeback right now. Like say Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. A
Hmm.
lot of these Netflix series we are kind of going back in time. So is
Yeah.
Yesterday's Ghost? I mean, coming back to the the, without giving away the plot, coming back to a few details. It is set in say the late 80s. It is set in the middle of something that a lot of us haven't experienced. So is this also kind of time traveling? Is it a conscious thing, or how does that happen?
Yeah, so like I said, I think I grew up reading a lot of spy thrillers. The best spy thrillers were set during the Cold War. You
Hmm.
had Russians and Americans and Brits and all at each other's backs. And that's what really inspired me. So, and I kind of look back in our history, in India's history, and kind of look back at, okay, what are the specific points of conflict, or what are some specific points where a lot of chaos, like political and that kind of chaos was created, and there were like a certain periods that kind of emerged. I also wanted to kind of explore the world of spycraft and tradecraft before digital.
Right.
So when you can't just talk to an agent on the field by picking up a cell phone or picking up a sat phone or something like that, where you had to use Morse code or you had to use analog radio or shortwave bursts. So I wanted to kind of explore that. And nowadays, obviously, we are losing more and more touch with the analog.
And of course, I think to kind of add a little more kind of spice to it, you've got your four spies who are in their mid say 50s to 60s, and they've lived through this. But of course, my main question here would be, how difficult is it to look into the mind of a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old with that kind of a past? Was that one of the difficult bits for you?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's very easy to write as oneself or about oneself. So I could have written about somebody who's in their 30s, and it would have been relatively easy for me. The challenge, of course, lies in kind of writing about somebody whose experiences you haven't really lived. It was difficult. It was challenging, of course, and I also had to make a lot of stuff up. I just had to kind of project
Wing.
what I think I would be as a 50-year-old.
Mhm.
So I had to kind of write from that perspective. But I hope I did them justice. But yeah, it was challenging.
Absolutely. I mean, I feel like it was an eye-opening experience, and of course, now again, like to kind of bring it back to what we're talking about. When I see you, I'm trying to connect, a serious 50-year-old spy, and I'm like, wow, that must have taken a lot of effort. You know what? I was kind of doing a little bit of research, of course, for this, and then I read somewhere that once you know what to sell, once you know what the other person wants, you can in fact weave a story around it and sell it a lot more effectively. So in line with that, what was the thought behind putting a genre like your espionage slash spy thriller with a horror? Was it what did you think that that was the need of the hour, or was it just kind of mixing things up?
So I think it was primarily the need of my hour. It wasn't a need of anybody else's hour. I think it was. I really wanted to kind of write this story. I think it had been alive in my brain for the last 10 to 15 years. I think I wrote the first version of it about 10 to 15 years ago. And it was always there in the back of my mind. And ever since I kind of started getting published by Harper since in 2018, I kind of realized that, now all those stories which I never thought would see the light of day, I can actually go back and bring them here. And this was the story that seemed most alive.
I was doing a little bit of reading up on yourself, and I found the one thing that stood out the most, or something that really excited me the most, was how every interview or every article that I've read about you said that writing has to be fun for me, and only then it translates. I mean, I have never heard, another person putting it in that perspective, that it's not just the reader's experience, it's also your personal experience. And, we are in fact, maybe secondhand experiencers of what you have gone through. So what was your, what were you looking for when you wrote this?
Yeah, so I think that's absolutely true. I think I am a person who gets distracted very easily, and there are enough things in the world today to kind of distract you. So so for writing to be able to kind of keep me in its way, it needs to be something that I feel a lot of fun doing. If I wasn't having fun writing, I honestly would be doing something else. But fortunately for me, just the two aspects of writing that I find the most fun are, one is obviously coming up with a story. So before I even touch pen to paper, or nowadays, open a Word document, exactly. I just mull over a story for about a month. I just kind of think, I don't write anything down so that it's always in motion, it's always in flow. And I just think about a general plot line, and I think about 2 or 3 major twists that I can put. Because only when I come up with something that is a little twisty, a little unconventional, or a little unpredictable, is when I find it will be fun. The second aspect for me is, once I actually have a plot in mind, I start writing in a more traditional way. But then at maybe about once I'm done with about 1 or 2% of the book, I need to start figuring out what is the narrative structure that I want to employ.
So again, talking about the fun element, right? How fun or how difficult is it to write horror? Because I do have to say, when you're making a movie, right, there's always the sound effect that's scarier than what you're seeing. When you're in a cinema hall, or wherever you are, it kind of gives you that impending sense that something is about to happen, and when it happens, you're still shocked. How magical that you can actually do that with words. But tell us the behind the scenes.
Like you said, I think movies can employ special effects or sound effects to kind of scare somebody. With writing, what happens is that the freedom, I find that writing horror kind of affords me a freedom that writing other genres don't. Because in other genres, you need to kind of root your story or root aspects of what are happening in the real world. You need to, if you're writing, let's say, an adventure novel or an action scene, you need to kind of have the geography of the room, right? This person enters from the door. So if this guy is attacked from his left, the guy will need to. So you need
there is a lot of logistics.
Exactly. And if you're doing a globe-trotting action adventure kind of thing, you need to again figure out the geography of it, and you need to figure out, okay, it usually takes about 20 hours to travel to this city, but he can't be back before this. So there's a lot of that involved. The fun with horror is that horror, you can kind of just leave all of that behind. You can go a lot into a person's head. That's what horror, because at the end of the day, horror is not about a scary monster in front of you. It's probably how much are you scared of the fact that there might be a scary monster in your own head.
And I think how you have played around with it is spectacular, because I am so convinced that this person is in fact saying the truth, that this person's experience is in fact what he is sharing with us. And, to kind of realize that that's not the case, I think it would have taken a lot of effort on your part as well.
Yeah, so the really cool thing about writing about unreliable narrators is that you effectively need to manage two timelines, which are very, very similar. So it's like you kind of, because the lie can't be so obvious
Blatant.
that, yeah, exactly, that it completely throws one timeline into whack.
Yeah.
You need to kind of make sure that the both timelines are very, very similar, but there's that one little aspect of it could that he lied about or she lied about, which could be hiding a much, much bigger lie. Unreliable narrators have been used quite a lot, and you're absolutely right that when an unreliable narrator is used without not judiciously by the author, it does feel like the author is cheating.
Right?
So yeah, it does. But one thing about Fight Club that, again, I never thought that the author was cheating, because you never learn the character's name.
Right.
You just
right.
know Tyler Durden's name, and you kind of never, so when that kind of that thing happens, you realize that, oh, okay, this person, the
It is
author
in
never
fact,
never lied. Yeah.
and I won't
The other
hold the
book
author responsible. But I mean, coming back to the genre on the whole, right? I think there are a lot of, Indian authors who are doing a lot of, horror, a lot of interesting stories around it. And I also feel like there's a lot of folklore that, you had also mentioned in a couple of interviews
Yeah.
that can be tapped into. So
Yes.
is that something that we can look forward to in your third book?
So so actually I've already started writing my third book, and the third book I wanted to uh, tap into a little bit of what we call geographically centric horror. Like, for example, if you study in a school, there'll be certain legends or something about the school that that only the school students will know.
Right.
So I'm kind of trying to tap into that. It's to kind of reveal a little bit more. My third book is going to be set in like a boys' hostel in the hills, and I'm trying to explore a completely new kind of form of narrative structure there. I grew up in Sikkim, so I'm sure that I have different ghosts
Stories
that I believed
from
in, as compared to somebody who grew up in Chennai or in Bombay or in Bangalore.
Absolutely. In fact, what I love about your writing, and this is my personal, observation, is that no matter how disconnected you are from the central theme, you have, made the whole process or the whole experience as a lot of hand holding. I'm not thrown in the deep as a reader. You have kind of given me a little bit of context, and then you let me experience it. And then, of course, when there's a twist around the next corner, again, you kind of employ that it's not really explaining, but there's a lot of hand holding, and I think I completely enjoyed that. So
thank you so much.
I mean, it's my pleasure. And I want to say, is that something that you have consciously done, that because it is in the 80s, because say you're talking about again number stations, and because it is things that a lot of us don't know about? Is it that you want to give us a little bit of context, or did the story just evolve along the way?
That's a really cool question. I think, again, as an author, you need to figure out whether at some points in time, if you need to over-explain or, kind of drown the reader in exposition, or if you want to kind of let them figure out things by themselves. So again, coming from my background as a gamer, I think what I've realized is that there are always portions where you as an author want to handhold the reader and kind of take them through a certain experience and say, this is exactly how I kind of imagine you'll experience it or you'll take it. But there are some aspects that are completely open for interpretation. I mean, I'm going to kind of just let you read the words and figure out why they did this or why they didn't.
In fact, now that you mention it, one of my favorite activities after I finish a book, of course, we've all got that book hangover, right? I found that largely in this, and one of my favorite activities, no matter what book I read, it is to Google so and so book plus analysis, so and so book plus, you're in such a hurry to find out what other people think, whether your thoughts are validated. And I found that the hangover with this book, just as in Cold Truths also, it's a lot deeper than I would have imagined it, because suddenly you are so deep in that story, and when it ends, it's still playing on your mind. So what is your say, what's your process like once you finish a book? Are you thinking I should employ quite a few of these in my next book?
I am a perpetual writer. I write all the time. So I'm like, the moment I'm done with one book, if I'm not involved in the marketing of that book, I kind of jump into the next book. So while I'm writing, so oftentimes what happens is I'm finishing up a current book, and I've already started thinking about the third book or the next book. But yeah, after the book, there I do take a little bit of a break, where I kind of just, okay, let's just think about the other story, not start writing it immediately. But yeah, if I feel like I'm not thinking of a story or doing something regarding a story, or maybe researching an aspect of a story, I'll feel a little empty. So I'll just kind of jump on to the next book.
In fact, yeah, you did mention that you get distracted a lot. So we are very happy. The audience is very happy when you jump onto the next book, to be honest. To kind of, tell you one very important thing, which is that when I was again researching the book, all the reviews spoke a lot about the cover part of it. You know what is happening on the inside just by a quick look at the cover. So is that something that that you consciously worked with? Give us a little backstory on that.
Yes. So I think the cover design bit of writing, of being an author, is probably one of the more fun aspects, but also one of the more frustrating aspects, because
I can imagine.
And especially, I mean, during COVID-19, you can't really go to a designer and sit with them and kind of, so what you need to do is kind of hopefully kind of write a brief that translates through an email, or, exactly, right? So I did that. I mean, I think what really worked for this cover was the fact that there were some very strong visual elements that popped off the page. It's not, the cover is not trying to represent some kind of a psychological or a metaphysical concept. It's representing an actual occurrence or an event that happens in the pages.
I mean, I do have to say, one look at the cover and that there are elements of the story in the cover, and it kind of makes you pick it up. And then of course when you turn around and read the blurb, or when you read the kind of synopsis, I think it just gets you a hook into you. So I do want to say, before we in fact do wrap up, just a couple more questions.
Yes.
Before I ask my all important question, I want to know, what is the story behind your Instagram handle? Why is it at post-war?
So okay, that's a
surprise.
I'll have to go back. I'll have to go back. I think this was in school or college, I think.
Oh my God.
One of my favorite bands is at that point of time was this Canadian rock band called Our Lady Peace.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I thought that the band name was incredibly cool. So I wanted to kind of just start thinking about band names. I wanted to start my own band and things like that. So I was doing a lot of thinking, and I want to talk about war, and I want to talk about peace, and then I realized that one of the most I guess productive times after a war is the immediate post-war period. That's when art blooms, that's when industry blooms, that's when people are the most intent on fixing things and making things better. And I kind of got influenced by that, and that's how the name stuck.
I might not be alone in this, but I thought it had a little bit to do with the story. I thought it might have, it might have had a little more context or a little sneak peek into the book itself.
My handle is really old. I think I had a Rediff Mail account with post-war as my username also.
Okay, by the way, I have again read a lot about you, and I know that you call yourself a professional Googler. I want to know,
yes.
Have you Googled yourself? Have you liked the results that come up? Have you tried it?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I mean, like any upcoming author, I do tend to Google myself.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds a little dirtier than.
No, I mean, it's but a given.
Yes, and so usually I Google myself to figure out if anyone in the wild has reviewed my books. Because honestly, most of I'm not famous enough to have stuff about me. So the first page of Google usually throws up my Facebook profile, my Instagram profile,
I
my
disagree.
Twitter
Okay.
profile. But I love to kind of hear what people have to think about what I wrote. So
Okay.
it's probably not going to impact the way I'm going to write, at least not consciously. Maybe it will subconsciously.
For everyone who's tuned in right now, who's watching right now, can you give them a quick, like a one-liner of the story that will,
Okay,
kind of give
sure.
them a sneak peek into the story?
Sure. So, Yesterday's Ghost is a spy thriller. If you ever watch the movie I Know What You Did Last Summer, it's I Know What You Did Last Summer meets 60-year-old spies. So that's what the book is about. And as a bonus, my other book, Cold Truth, which came out in 2018, it's basically an investigation by a journalist into a little girl who's disappeared and whose disappearance ties into a decades-old global conspiracy. So that's the two elevator pitches for my two
Both the
books.
books. Okay. Another question that I wanted to ask you. I think again, I know I keep alluding to the impending last question, but forgive me for all my questions. You know what I completely took back from all your interviews is that you have a bunch of books or novellas or outlines that you have already sorted out, that you kind of like to revisit from time to time and build upon. So you already have given us a quick a prelude or a preview into what your third book is going to be. But how many more books do you have? I mean, just as for all the aspiring writers out there, I know everyone who's tuned in right now wants to know if a book that you've written in your early 20s can come to fruition in your 30s. So
Yeah, it absolutely can. I think I must have about 15 to 20 stories shelved somewhere. Not all of them can see the light of day because honestly, some of them are quite terrible. So, some of them I can actually imagine writing sometime in the future when I kind of explore some other genres or I explore certain subgenres within thrillers and horror.
There are a few there.
Yes.
Superb. So, of course, before we in fact do call it a wrap, I think, like I said, there are a lot of aspiring writers who might be tuned in right now. That either they have stories they want to get started. What is your because I know your journey has been very lovely. What has your takeaway been from the last couple of years, or your experience of being an author and
Right.
where you started off, and of course where you are right now? It's been, I'm sure, a fantastic journey.
Yeah, so it's absolutely been a dream come true, especially with a publishing house like Harper and some of the folks who made it possible. My editor Swati Dafdwar, my agent Kanishk Gupta. So I'd like to kind of tackle your question in two parts. One is from the emotional this thing aspect. I think what you need to do is you just should never give up. You just need to keep writing, irrespective of whether people like your writing, whether you're writing too much, too little, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just every day, take half an hour, 1 hour, 45 minutes, how much ever works for you, but just write. From the technical perspectives, I think it's very, very difficult to make a living writing in India, unless you are a few names. A Chetan Bhagat, Ravinder Singh, these folks can make a living writing in India, but it's very difficult otherwise. So I'd suggest, if you want to pursue a career in writing, you need to kind of maintain a day job. A good agent really works because as much as you would like to believe that, I'm going to self-publish and I'm going to make something out of it, or that I'm going to cold call publishing houses and send my manuscripts there, these publishing houses are inundated with manuscripts. They've got too many manuscripts happening at the same time. So an agent really helps in kind of cracking the door open. Again, there's nothing wrong with self-publishing, but with self-publishing, obviously the pitfalls are the fact that apart from just writing, you have to do everything else. You have to think of the design, you have to think of the marketing, you have to think about reaching the right audiences, you have to think about reaching the right bookshops. So there's a whole lot of trouble that comes with self-publishing, so as an author, if you just kind of want to focus on writing, I'd say if you're going down the traditional route, go through an agent. And finally, like I said, there is not a lot of money involved, but fortunately, right now we are at a time where stories are being sought after by people, outside of books. So I'm very lucky that Cold Truth was picked up by Razorblade and is right now being worked with Radical Media out of LA. They're trying to make a pilot out of it.
Superb. I think you've kind of not only given us a sneak peek into your mind, but also paved, quite a bit of optimism and excitement for all the aspiring writers and in fact just readers all around. So I just want to say thank you so much, Nikhil. It's been an absolute pleasure, chatting with you. And of course, I'm sure I speak for a lot of people when I say we can't wait for your third book.
Thank you very much, Shilpa. I think by giving us an opportunity, by giving upcoming authors and new authors an opportunity to kind of have their voices heard, there's nothing better than that, at least from my perspective. So thank you for talking to me. Thank you for letting me kind of talk to your audience as well. And it was a really fun conversation. This is my current book, and this was my last book. So Yesterday's Ghost and Cold Truth.
Cold Truth, I do have to say, I mean, just looking at the cover, it kind of hooks you in. I have to say the covers have been spectacularly designed. And of course, with the story to kind of, build that, I think there's nothing greater than it. So once again, congratulations, Nikhil. It's been an absolute pleasure seeing you.
Thank you, Shilpa.